Hey, everybody. You're about to hear a synopsis of the movie The Crucible. Enjoy the movie. The tape is based on a true story. Salem 1.692. At dawn, a group of young girls came running into the forest. There they waited for the slave woman Tituba. Each girl threw herbs into a cauldron and said the name of the young man she wanted to bewitch. Abigail gave the woman a chicken and the woman began to cast a love spell. Abigail conjured up something terrible, after which she killed the chicken and drank its blood. The rest of the girls went wild and threw off their clothes, but then the priest came into the clearing and they scattered. Little Beth fainted and then fell ill. Her sister cannot wake her up and went to get a doctor, but he is busy. A girl from another family also sleeps with her eyes open and the doctor can't help her. Probably it's the devil's work. I guess it's time to start a witch hunt. The priest, the father of Betty's soul and Abigail's uncle, is about to be excommunicated from the pulpit because of their transgression. Samuel Parrish tries to find out if they summoned a spirit in the woods or not and if Abigail's conscience is clear. There are rumors in the village that she is having an affair with a married man, John Proctor. John is raising 2 sons, and he and the rest of the villagers have been rounded up by the priest. As it is known that an evil demon has escaped from hell, so Paris has sent for the Reverend Dr. Hale, an expert in diabolical rites. He's sure to uncover traces of Satan. The girls panic. Mary offers to confess everything and then they will be flogged, otherwise they will be accused of witchcraft and hanged. Abigail suspects that her sister is faking and persuades her to open her eyes, and suddenly Betty comes to her senses. She calls out for her dead mother and nearly jumps out the window. The girl blames her sister for everything because she drank the potion because she wanted to kill Elizabeth Proctor, the wife of her lover. Abigail threatens all the girls that if any of them say too much, she will come to them at night and kill them. The Indians smashed her parents' heads in front of her, so she's not afraid of anything. Betty rushes to the window again, all the residents running to her screams. The girl is hysterical. She couldn't stop calling out for her dead mom, and then she passed out again. The spouses paterna are more worried than the others. They have only 1 child out of 8 children alive, who cannot wake up. But John Proctor is a skeptic and does not believe in the tricks of the devil. He met with a young mistress and found out what they were really doing in the woods. The man asks to forget about their sinful connection. He would rather cut off his hand than touch her again. Dr. Hale arrives in the village. John helps him move all his books. He has heard that the Reverend is a reasonable man and will not accuse anyone for nothing. Hale scrutinizes the little one's body looking for the devil's seal. Hale's books described every kind of evil spirit in existence. The priest told Hale that he had found his niece and her friends dancing around a campfire. The Reverend set up an interrogation to find out who was the instigator, which of them drank from the cauldron, or cast the spell. Mary pointed to Abigail to defend herself. She blamed Tituba for everything. The woman was dragged out of her shack and began to be interrogated and flogged. Abigail continues to taunt the slave woman, claiming she laughs while she prays and appears to her in her dreams. In order for the beating to stop and Tituba to say that the devil did come to her, she refused. Hale gave her the opportunity to return to God and recite a prayer, but she must give the names of the people in the village who serve the devil. The slave lied that she saw with him the midwives of the Putnam family, who had killed all their children. Abigail and the other girls realized how they could save themselves and began shouting the names of innocent old women who allegedly sold to the devil, but the girls did not stop there. Because of their accusations, 14 locals were behind bars. Elizabeth asks John to influence Abigail. Everyone is now afraid of her because the girl admitted to him that she did not see the devil. The wife is still jealous of her husband. Abigail worked as a servant and had to send the girl away. When she found out about their relationship with her husband, the case gained momentum. 3 judges from the town have arrived in the village. In court, one of the midwives, Sarah Good, has already pleaded guilty, so will not be hanged. Sarah Osborne proposes to do the same, but the woman is not going to lie that she serves the devil and asks the girls not to slander her. However, those grab their stomachs, pretend that the witch has done them harm. To the locals, she became a martyr and a real heroine. Once a goat got into Mary Sieber's vegetable garden and she violated the owner of the animal. The next day they came after her and accused her of witchcraft, which is what they did to every unwanted woman. A guy with a wagon had a rope burst, causing the wood to scatter. At this moment a girl and her mother were looking at him, and they were also accused of having a connection with the devil. The grandfather waved his hand to the man who was making a fire, and suddenly the flames burst out, and the grandfather was also accused of witchcraft. Each time interviews one of the allegedly affected girls, and they always lied that the accused is connected to the devil. Rude claims that the grandfather climbed in through her window and lay on top of her, and it doesn't matter that the grandfather can barely walk because he could send his spirit. According to Rude, a black man stands behind him and whispers something to him. The other girls echoed her, and then they all fainted at once. Martha Corey couldn't stand it any longer and laughed, calling everyone present fools. The esteemed nurse couple also left the circus. Mary Warren, the Proctor family maid, gave Elizabeth a doll and complained that all the accused were going to be hanged. Mary argues that they need to help the judges find where the devil is really hiding. John grabs the maid to beat the crap out of her, but she exclaims that his wife, Elizabeth Proctor, was also mentioned today, but she defends her. Mary won't admit who exactly accused the woman, but the couple can guess. Abigail wants her dead. John calls the girl into the woods and orders her to admit that she can't see spirits and to stop blaming everyone else, but she responds by showing the bite of his wife, who supposedly entered her room that Saturday. Abigail throws herself at the man. John warns her not to blame his wife. The crazy girl immediately runs to the judges and pulls a needle from her stomach. The old men are surprised to get so much testimony from the children, and Mr. Putnam is suspected of slandering his neighbors over the land. In the evening, Dr. Hale arrives at the Proctor's house and informs the couple that Rebecca Nurse, the most respected and decent woman in town, has been accused today. Hale needed to make sure the Proctors were true Christians, since their youngest son hadn't even been baptized. Hale asked John to repeat all the commandments of the Lord, and he remembered all but one, adultery. Finally, John confessed that he'd talked to Abigail and she hadn't actually seen the devil. 26 people had already confessed to Satan-worshiping Hale, but under pain of death. A wagon pulled up to the house with chained prisoners, including Rebecca Nurse and Martha Corey, who laughed in court. Now she's going to take Elizabeth too. The house was searched and a doll given to the woman by Mary was found with a needle sticking out of its belly, which meant Elizabeth had harmed Abigail, but Mary had protected her mistress. She must have been the one who forgot to take the needle out of the doll. Abigail had seen the girl mastering it in court. John was sick of it all, crazy kids and vindictive kids and adults sending innocent people to the gallows and judge priests helping them do it. Elizabeth forgave her sons and let herself be chained. John tried to fight her off and afterward demanded that Mary go to court and tell the truth about the doll there, but Mary is afraid that the other girls will blame her in return. It turned out that Martha Corey was accused of witchcraft for predicting the death of the pigs, one of the residents, but she just did not take good care of them. John and Mr. Corey burst into the court. They are going to prove that all the accusations sound from the mouths of crooks. In this they must help Mary, who will confirm that none of the girls did not see the spirits. The judge offers John a deal. According to the statement of his wife Elizabeth, she is pregnant, and the law forbids to harm an innocent child. She will be safe for a year, but they are willing to take her word for it only if John takes his accusations, but he cannot betray his friends whose wives will remain condemned. They collected signatures from 90 Salem residents who confirmed that the accused women had never shown signs of association with the devil. The judge took the list and ordered them all arrested. The judge summoned Mr. Putnam. Mr. Corey accuses him of killing his neighbors to buy up their confiscated land cheaply. To do this, he coaxed his daughter to slander the neighbors. Putnam, of course, denies all this, and what did the judge decide? He held Mr. Corey in contempt and threw him in jail. All the girls came to Mary's house to punish her. She runs away and hides in court, and John provides a letter in which Mary confesses that neither she nor the other girls saw the devil. Hale demands that all the accused be given a lawyer, He has already signed 17 death sentences out of him, but the judge seems to scoff. How can a lawyer help if witchcraft is an invisible crime and only the victim can tell about it? They brought all the so-called victims to court. The judge asks them if they really lied about seeing spirits or if it's Mary made a deal with Satan to thwart their sacred purpose, in which case she will be hanged. The judge turned to Abigail, who stated that she had not seen any doll and also confirmed that she had been attacked by Elizabeth Proctor's spirit. John then told how she and the other maidens had danced in the woods around a fire, and her uncle was now covering for her. During one of the sessions, Mary and everyone together fainted because a spell was cast on them, and if she was faking it, let her show how she did it and faint right away, but the girl is confused and frightened, so she can't gather herself to picture fainting. The judges have driven her to hysterics, but Abigail is firm in her testimony. Suddenly she cried out and said she felt the presence of evil. The other girls began to play along, and the judge demanded that Mary stop sending spirits. Abigail fell to her knees and prayed. John then called her a whore and admitted that he cheated on his wife with her. Abigail just wants to get rid of his spouse to be with him. The judge demanded that the minister bring Elizabeth Proctor to court. The woman kicked the maid out of the house for being a harlot. If Elizabeth confirms it now, Abigail will have to answer for everything. The judge ordered Abigail and John to turn away from the witness so they couldn't make signs to her. Elizabeth was led into the room and asked why she had fired Abigail. John had cheated on her with this girl. The woman was ashamed. She didn't want to besmirch her husband's name, so she answered that she hadn't. Suddenly Abigail yelled again and pointed to a bird that seemed to be sitting upstairs with Mary's spirit in it. The rest of the liars immediately began to wiggle and play along. The judge asked Mary why she changed her testimony. It was Satan who put her up to it. The girl teases Mary. The imaginary bird spread its wings and flew at the girls. They ran outside screaming. The crazy performance continued, and there the girls rushed hysterically to the pond. Mary realized that she would die if she didn't start lying again and said that John had threatened her with death if she didn't change her testimony in court. The judge concluded that John's was the Antichrist as well. Abigail was captured, with all the residents showering him with curses. All the defendants were found guilty and sentenced to death. For the amusement of the people of Salem, one man after another is hanged. The maidens roar and rejoice at every broken neck. Mr. Corey is tortured for contempt of court. The brave old man refuses to admit his guilt. More and more stones were placed on Corey until he breathed his last. After the execution, Hale looked disapprovingly at Abigail. She immediately ran to the judge and claimed that Dr. Hale's wife had tortured her last night, a claim the judge would no longer believe. Everyone in Salem shuns Abigail like a leper. Men intimidate her priest uncle. At night, Abigail stole his money and ran to John's dungeon. Tomorrow he is to be executed. The girl plans to bribe the guards and help her lover hide in Barbados. Having received a refusal, Abigail decides to escape herself. The frightened priest asks to postpone today's execution. All three condemned to death are the most respected people in the village, and a riot may break out. An exhausted Elizabeth is taken outside. Hale asks her to persuade her husband to lie and admit his guilt. Then he will be able to save his life, and the two of them will be home tomorrow. Elizabeth asks for a chance to talk to her husband alone, but she won't tell him about the deal. On the contrary, John wants to turn himself in and admit his guilt. Elizabeth is not going to influence his decision in any way, because it is his soul at stake. The woman begs his forgiveness for everything, and John cries out that he wants to live. Rebecca Nurse and Marky Corey are put on the wagon. John confesses before their eyes that he serves the devil. His written confession is hung on the church door. The women are disappointed in John, but they themselves are not going to take the sin upon themselves, even in pain of death. John is handed a quill and signs his confession, but immediately grabs the paper. He couldn't bear the shame of having his confession hanging in plain sight, while his friends were hanged and kept their honorable name. John cried and tore up the confession paper. He was taken with the women to the sperm whale. Elizabeth recognized that he was a righteous man again, and she would not discourage him. Today, all the villagers would pay their own way. All three had the noose tightened around their necks. They recited a prayer in complete silence and courageously accepted their doom. Hundreds were imprisoned and more than 20 people were hanged. The execution stopped after people stopped pleading guilty to save their lives.